Good morning. My name is William Lavery. I've been attending First Pres for about 8 years now. Are you willing is a question that everyone asks themselves in life. It can be something as small as, can I make it to the next gas station where it might be cheaper? Or it can be the question that has faced people always, like, am I willing to change my way of life for something that God is asking me to do? I have faced the challenging question of are you willing many times in my life. The largest question of are you willing is something I'm going through right now. My whole life, I have always been interested in going into law enforcement and into the military. But recently, I've been looking at going into ministry work. I know that with the military, I can become a chaplain, but law enforcement, it's harder to find a job in and also work in ministry. This is the are you willing question that I am facing in my life, but everyone faces a different question. This very question Moses had to ask himself when God came to him in the form of a burning bush that did not wither well in the fire. At the bush, God told Moses to return to Egypt and to free his people. But in Exodus 4:10, it states that, then Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." This statement shows that even Moses asked for God to find another because he believed that he was not good enough at speaking to be able to get Pharaoh to change his mind about releasing God's people from their suffering that they have endured under the Egyptians. While Moses was hesitant on going into Egypt, he knew what the right thing to do was. While on his way back to Egypt, God spoke to his brother Aaron and told him to be Moses' mouth when he went to go to speak with the elders and to speak with Pharaoh. On the other hand, with being unwilling to listen to God and the Pharaoh, which happened to be Ramses at the time, who grew up with Moses as a sibling because his mother took Moses in when she found him in the Nile River. The way that the Pharaoh was unwilling is when Moses asked Pharaoh to let his people go, and that it was the God of his forefathers was speaking through him to deliver the message to Pharaoh. Due to Pharaoh's unwillingness, the 10 plagues took place. The final plague of losing his firstborn child is what finally caused Pharaoh to give in and let God's chosen people go. These two stories from in the Bible are tied together because of Moses' willingness to listen to God's call for him to go back to Egypt. You will more than likely not find a burning bush in your lifetime, but God speaks to everyone in different ways and with a different thing he wants them to do with their life. Even if God speaks to you like he did to Moses, there will always be someone like Pharaoh that he puts in your way. Just because there is a challenge in your way, you should still be willing to push through it because God will be there to help you through it. God puts challenges in everyone's way to see if they are willing to put their trust in him and see if they will help other Christians and people through their tough times and see if they can help spread his salvation through the world.
Wow, there's a lot of people here. Hi, so my name is Benjamin Fitzgerald. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a junior at Eastside High School. Go Rams. So, In life, we are faced with many choices. Some are inconsequential, like what food you'll have for breakfast. Some matter a lot more, like what career field you'll follow, or for someone like me, what college I'll go to. One thing that a lot of choices share in common is that they aren't easily made. For example, deciding what to eat for breakfast. Even though what you had will be forgotten in a year, or if you're like me, a day, it can sometimes seem impossible to decide. One choice that we all face that is hard, but genuinely important, is if we want to give our lives to God. And I should stress this point. This isn't a one-time decision. At one point, there are some major decisions that go into this. Deciding if we should go to church and learn about God, deciding if we believe in this higher power. Those are all important one-time decisions that go into our faith. But there are a plethora of choices we are faced with many times that come after. These can be something big, like committing adultery or murder, but most often it's something small, like being nice to someone. To quote what I feel is an often overlooked passage, 1 Peter 4:8, "Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins." What I'm trying to say is this: despite there being few big choices in life, there are plenty of small ones that we make every day, sometimes not even thinking about, but are still important. I got today's theme, "Are you willing?" and 2 Bible passages to go along with it. One was about the burning bush, and the other was about Jesus calling Peter and friends to be his disciples, or in some translations, you may know it as fishers of men. And I feel like what I was supposed to do with these passages was obvious. Talk about how you should be willing to give your life to God, no matter how scary it may seem. And I really do think that this is an important message, and the courage of those men cannot be overstated. But when I was writing this sermon, I had a lot of trouble coming up with what to say. Having a burning bush talk to you is something so abstract. I think a lot of people would either think that they're crazy or just go with it because if a burning bush is on fire and talking to you, you're probably dreaming. And if Jesus asked someone to come with him, I think a lot of people would do it. I know I would, because that guy can make free food. So there were 2 main issues that I ran into when writing this sermon. The first is that stuff like this almost never happens. I mean, I haven't seen any burning bushes lately, have you? And so I found it hard to make a relatable sermon about this. And then the second aspect of this that I struggled with was that when you see something like a burning bush talking to you, or literally Jesus asking you to come with him, there's little room for doubt. Sure, the choice might be big, like leaving your life as a fisherman, but Jesus is right there. So I struggled a lot with these passages and this theme for those 2 reasons, which is why I talked about choices for a long time. But the reason for that is this: I find that willingness often revolves around a choice. Are you willing to clean up your room? Are you willing to love your neighbor as yourself? Are you willing to get up and do a sermon on Youth Sunday? At least I get it to sit in the cool chair. And so what I wanted to talk about was this. Although there are these big, one-time, major, life-changing decisions that we need to make and are important, not to forget about the small decisions that we make every day in all of this. Some of us, most of us, may never get to see a burning bush or go off on an adventure with Jesus, but all of us can be willing to love our neighbor as ourselves. All of us can be willing, no matter how small, to make a difference in God's name. So the question is this: are you willing? Thank you.
Again, let me thank you for joining us in our worship today at First Presbyterian Church of Gainesville. I invite you to come on Sunday and join us personally at 1055 in our sanctuary at 106 Southwest 3rd Street in downtown Gainesville. We have other ways to be involved in the ministry offerings of First Presbyterian Church: children's ministry, music ministry, a ministry with college students. You can reach us at 352-378-1527 or on the web at 1stpc.org.